Hello, welcome to Infocus. Thanks for your company on the program Customary Land here in Papua New Guinea, the law surrounding it. It's our birthright, and only us in Papua New Guinea value land to some extent where it's part of us. And I'm privileged to have with me in the studio Dr. Onne Rageau, who's been doing some work on this for a very long time, but he's now with me in the studio to speak about customary land law in Papua New Guinea. Doctor, thank you for coming onto the program.
Thank you.
All right, so I spoke about in my opening remarks about land and how we hold land close to our chest here in Papua New Guinea. And it's something that only us in Papua New Guinea can better understand this, and in Papua New Guinea, people have been killed over land.
That's exactly right. In Papua New Guinea, customary land is what we're talking about. So customary land is to the very heart of Papua New Guineans. And if you want to know about that type of aspect, it's the livelihood of Papua New Guineans, because over many, many generations, people have lived by from the customary land resources. And second point is that it is the recognized spiritual element to the customary land. And thirdly, it is the soul of Papua New Guineans. So you got a livelihood, you got a spirit, and you got a soul. And Papua New Guinea, to that sense of customary land, is very, very important. And that is why you cannot sell land, or for that matter, because it simply is too close to the heart.
All right. So in your work, what do you actually look at in terms of customary land laws?
Well, what happened was customary land is owned by Papua New Guineans. And when Papua New Guineans live many, many generations, it was from the beginning of times, before any explorers or any businessmen or any governments or anybody outside. There were people in Papua New Guinea. People were living on the customary land of our Papua New Guinea customary land. So in fact, there were people there. So when Papua New Guinea went through all the stages of development and come to Papua New Guinea independence in 1975, so about 45 years ago, there was a tendency that we need to use the laws, and the laws that we must understand that belong to Papua New Guineans. And I would like to make a point to all Papua New Guineans that to the national constitution we have yet to use your customary laws. And customary law is that respect is under that underlying law. It's contained under the underlying law. And all our customary laws are under the underlying law since 1975 until now. And we have to look at what is that law that we are talking about in relation to the customary land.
So, Dr. Rageau, you are a medical professional, but you're also interested in this field of talking about customary land law in Papua New Guinea. What got you started?
We took the interest of the law of the customary land is because we know for sure that many of us are born on the background from the rural villages set up. So we know basically the importance of customary land. And when you know about the customary land, you're talking about, may I say, it is the first law. And when you talk about the customary laws, customary land seems to be a very important law. So far as when Papua New Guineans are born in their own settings, like especially in a rural setting, you know for sure that the customary land that you got to go to, you must know your boundaries, you must know your genealogy, migration patterns, and everything else relating to that. So simply, customary land is a law. So you have to understand that there are other people who have their tribes or clans who own the land, and they are parties to that particular area. But you know for sure that that particular area specifically for you is where you're bound to work your surroundings in terms of livelihood, in whatever you grow or look for, especially like hunting and fishing. You have to know those locations.
Dr. Rageau, thank you for your comments there. We'll go for a short break and come back with more on the other side. Welcome back to Infocus, customary land law, in our discussions today. Dr. Rageau, looking at the customary land laws we have here in Papua New Guinea, there were the colonial foreign land laws that were adopted and the bigger land laws, that the umbrella land laws here in Papua New Guinea. What do you think about the current laws and how it serves our people?
Well, the main thing to understand is we are talking about the land laws. So when you talk about the land laws, from the Papua New Guinea point of view, there is unwritten land law. We don't have a law insofar as the customary land is concerned. What we are using today is basically the colonial foreign land concepts which were adopted by the early government leaders or the government when we need to develop the customary land. So many of the current laws that we are using, the land laws, they are adopted land acts of the National Parliament. So today, I think I'm bringing out something that the issue of interest for all our leaders and those in our authority to understand that the adopted foreign land concepts are currently the land acts of the National Parliament. That makes them look like it is good for us. But when you look at the law of the customary land, we haven't written anything about the customary land, and that's a problem we have. Why we're taking that into due significant importance is that the law of the customary land is our representation, our identity. If we know the identity of our landowners to the customary land, then we are pretty certain that that is the way forward for landowners to do business or project development with the investors. And in particular, not ignoring the provincial government or national government, we are also, getting that into that equation that people must understand that the land which belongs to customary landowners must have an identity. And perhaps we are talking very close to the customary land ownership title, because that's important. If you don't have the ownership title, then how are you going to do business? How are we going to develop projects? And that's as far as, if I can extend to all our leaders in a sense of having to have the parliamentarians, which are, who are doing a very good job. They're talking about electorate development. So in electorate development, how do you weigh yourself to do projects or business on the customary land, belong to the landowners, but yet you haven't registered that customary land, the portion that you need to do project or business on it.
Hence, the discussion of developing something that actually is ours and is applicable to us is in the discussion.
Yes, that's right. I think before we do any project or do any business on the customary land, it is important that we must have the identity of landowners to that respective land.
There are some places in Papua New Guinea where they've grouped, landowners into ILG. In your opinion, has that worked?
That is exactly what is happening today. When you talk about the incorporated land group is ILG, that's what it means. it goes to volunteer customary land registration. And currently, registering the customary land is most important. And as an independent nation, we cannot go ahead and voluntarily register the customary land. Because when that happens, that landowners are not having to have the title. In fact, that title goes to government control, where we have the freehold or leasehold arrangement, and that is basically facilitating the investors to do business or project on the customary land. And that is okay. But when it began in the early part of our independency, what was happening is that because of the facilitation, there were benefits given to the investors that they would get a good portion of the benefits. And you look at what currently now is what has been organized in the last 45 years ago, where 90% of the benefits are going to the investors. 10% goes to the government, and those projects or business which are conducted where the project sites are, the landowners get the royalties. To me, this is like a bit of a skin and bones, I would say. But what about the majority? Majority don't have. So simply what we are talking about is that as a general point to make is that we must use our own customary law, which is the land law of the customary land. That is important because it's already been protected under the national constitution, where you know that all our laws are under the underlying law. And in 1975, Underlying Law Act and Underlying Law Act 2000, there were emphasis on this. And when you talk about the underlying law, you're talking about the customary laws. And today, I'm not making any emphasis on other customary laws, but then in particular is the law of the customary land, because that is the keen interest for us to understand that the law of the customary land must come out. And it's already in that underlying law, but nobody's bringing it out. That is why our intention is to bring it out. Because when you bring it out, then all our landowners are able to, work around, especially with the provincial and national government and other national and international investors to help us to build this nation. And that's what we are talking about.
And from then onwards, there's a win-win situation for all parties, but rightly so for the customary landowners. Discussions with Dr. Onne Rageau, the founder of PNG Customary Law, and he's an advocate of this. We'll continue on with more of these discussions on Infocus when we come back on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Infocus. Now, Doctor, we understand you look after the Customary Land Law Foundation. In fact, you are the founder of this. Tell us about your work and how you are gathering people in as far as customary land law is concerned.
Thank you. Well, what actually happened was I'm a medical doctor by profession, and over many years I saw a lot of issues, especially relating to health. But when I come to find out about cost and helping to alleviate poverty, I found that land issue was one of the most important area, and I took interest on that. And then somebody told me that customary land is owned by the people. Then I took great interest because we need to do something about this. And in 2007, we formed a company called Customary Land Law Consultant Limited. In fact, initially it was a communal land development company, but because the customary laws, especially relating to the customary land, was important, we have to rename it as Customary Land Law Consultant Limited. Now, what actually happened was that we used the first case of customary land law in Cloudy Bay logging project, where the logging company was halted, the operation stopped, and they brought us to the court to try and allow them to continue logging. But we said that the importance of customary law is important because there are renewable and non-renewable resources, and it's for the people of Papua New Guinea. So that case brought to the attention of the National Court is still pending for a new agreement. But to take you back to what has happened is that once there was a successful stopping of this logging operation, it's a multi-million kina project. We were given the power of attorney by the Cloudy Bay landowners. And because of that, we had to take the initiative to look further on the land law the law of the customary land. And we found out that customary land is very close to the people. So when you see the customary land, in fact, it's the customary law. And over many generations, from the beginning of times, customary land has been the supreme customary law of all the customary laws in Papua New Guinea. So the supreme customary law is the customary land. And if you consider all the customary laws, the supreme customary law is the prominent one. It's supreme in the sense that it is much more than many other laws that are within the customary laws themselves. So what has actually happened was that because there was a development of underlying law, of the underlying law over the years, there were two conferences held by the stakeholders of the government. And the stakeholders government on the underlying law, first one in Alotau and two last ones in Port Moresby. We attended the ones in Port Moresby. And we were closely observing that if you have to develop the underlying law, then underlying law has to be understood that underlying law contains the customary laws. And since independence, there was a law called indigenous jurisprudence. When you talk about indigenous jurisprudence, it reflects the customary laws. So when there were underlying law conferences to develop the underlying law, how can you put the colonial foreign land concept of common law and PNG customary laws, combine them together and form the underlying law? It cannot work that way. Because when you're talking about the indigenous jurisprudence or talking about the underlying law, they're the same thing. They contain the customary laws. So what we have found was that once you get a supreme customary law, because that represents the customary land, and use the colonial foreign land concept from the Commonwealth, the common law, you put them together, it forms a legal body. And that legal body is now called the customary land law. And that's where the definition of the customary land law comes up. That's where the purpose of the customary land law comes about. And that's where the description of the customary land by the customary land law come about. Because once you have the description of the customary land, definition of the customary land law, and the purpose of the customary land law, it makes sense. Because that is important for Papua New Guineans. All
right. So, Doctor, in your work, have you gone out to the communities and outreach programs or to do more awareness on this? And if you have done so, what are some of the responses from the people?
Yes, we have gone to many villages, and especially in Central Province, in Abau area, we have covered a lot of areas. And we have also gone as far as other regions, in particular the Momasa region and also New Guinea Islands, and Alotau, which is an aspect of southern region. But particularly in Port Moresby, we've covered a lot of land groups, and they're in great support. But the problem is that the landowners need money to register their land, and that's a problem we have. And in fact, we've been trying to ally with the national parliamentarians to try and help them with the PSIP and DSIP funding, because this is a crucial time where landowners can secure and protect and develop their customary land.
Right. So in terms of, communicating this important message of customary land laws and its value to our people, do you think the people in Papua New Guinea understand this need?
Very much so. They understand it. Just that when you talk about IoT, volunteer customary land registration, that is what the government is bringing to the people. But the fact is that that is not truly the way the people look at. People want to be involved. And if you bring the right law to the people where they own the land and they own the resources, that is a workable way for these landowners to participate in signing the agreements. In signing the agreement, they must be involved. And when they sign the agreement, they are agreeing with the business and project proposals. And I believe that that is the way forward if we have to get more landowner participated. And in this small, medium enterprises we're looking at, I'm sure there's a lot of people will be involved, and a lot of these people participate in activities which is going to generate a lot of interest. And towards the economy ownership, that is the only way this law will make a change.
Right. Look, Dr. Rageau, we thank you very much for having you on the program with us today, and we wish you all the best to the Customary Land Law Foundation and its work.
Thank you very much, and thank you, listeners.
All right, that's In Focus. If you have comments on our program tonight, you can email us on the email now showing on your screen, or you can engage with us social on our Facebook and Twitter pages, or you can watch this program a little later on YouTube. From all of us here, pleasant viewing. Bye-bye.